Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I guess we are live. Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for joining. My name is Dr. Effie Pilarinu. If you don't know me, I'm a global fintech and tech thought leader, and I'm joined today by my business manager, Ed Brooks, who's joining from New York. Thank you, Ed, for being together. New York, Zurich, a bridge.
The two of the major financial capitals of the world, but I mean also the world's sunniest rooms, so the light's not perfect. Apologies.
It's good to be
Well, it's
imperfect.
funny because the view out the windows are phenomenal, but you can't see them.
Yes, yes. Here in Zurich too, we have a sunny day, and we have a very hot topic to discuss, which is, I guess, a timeless topic. How do we transform? How do we use technologies to keep up with the changes in the world? How do we do that? As human beings, we know that it's much more complicated than just the technology. And today, the theme, as you probably have seen, is all about bridging the big gap. I think, and I'd love to hear your views that exist between starting the transformation journey and really the practical steps, the execution, going to production. And I'm always interested in financial services, which is a core industry, very regulated, but core behind every economic activity. And in this macroeconomic environment, we are definitely more focused on these core industries behind everything, supply chains, commerce, be it physical or digital. We financial services are powering really the world. And I feel that there's a great urgency right now to really look at how to keep up with the advancements in technology. We in financial services have been going through this journey for, let's say, 2 decades, for 1 decade in a very intense mode. But right now, with the new tech cycle of AI, we're again faced with another wave of major transformation. And even fintechs, the digitally natives, even those are faced with very similar challenges as the incumbents. And I must say that this is the time that we admit we have to keep in mind that the riskiest thing to do is to do nothing. So with those thoughts, with that perspective, uh, I really want to discuss today what we propose and how we propose to contribute to solve this problem and what we have planned. So it's all about the why, the how, and the what. And as I said, there's consensus. Even management consultants agree that uh, over 70%, that number 70%, there's a consensus. Deloitte, McKinsey, all the likes are saying that 70% of digital transformation projects fail. And there's ample examples in our industry. It's not only, fintechs that have failed themselves in transforming further, but even big financial services providers with deep pockets, they've also experienced failures. We can name many of those. What comes to mind? I mean, I can think of Goldman Sachs and Marcos, they had to fold that. I can think of HSBC recently. They had to shut down Zing. From the fintech side, Klarna went out and said, a couple of months ago, oh, AI, we're going to cut half of our staff. We're transforming. AI is making us a different business, only to come out last month around Valentine's and say that We want to become the best in offering humans to speak to you. So, it's confusing, it's
And
complex,
And that's
right?
also that's also the public side of it. I mean, we see these big announcements by the big organizations or the big startups or big fintechs, but behind the scenes, there's a thousand small projects that the people buy the dream and get the vision, but the actual implementation proves difficult. I mean, I've been involved in ERP projects which have taken years and then delivered, been canned, after 2 or 3 years because they haven't delivered anything, but after costing tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's the public side of things and the private side of things, but behind it all is this common issue of, we get the vision, we get the dream, but on a micro level, how do we actually make it happen within our organizations in a way that protects the kind of the reputation of the organization as a whole, but also at an individual level, we want our careers to survive. We want to be able to move to the next level. And we see this AI and crypto and everything else that's happening as a bridge to maybe the next step in our careers. But if we're afraid to take action or if we're worried about things going wrong, then it's going to hold us all back individually, but also the organization. So a lot of what Effie and I have been talking about has been, well, how do you actually, at a micro level, help people with the real things that are going to help move their projects forward in a meaningful way that collectively delivers the results that have been promised, but also recognizes that it requires so much deep specialist expertise, and there isn't a playbook, there isn't a bunch of consultants who've done this 1,000 times before. We're all kind of pioneering in our own kind of way. So by having a forum where people can come together and ask specific questions at a very, very niche level, that's somehow our contribution to bridging the gap between the vision and the reality we all have to face.
Yeah, exactly. And there's many reasons that these challenges in implementation exist. It's not only the legacy technology that is, that's obviously one reason, but there's many more reasons that go beyond the legacy tech structures. That there's cultural issues, there's underestimating complexity and cost of projects. There's resistance from employees. There's challenges about which vendors to work with. We can go on and on. There's long lists of these challenges, and they're very real. And in a way, how do we solve this? It's the only way right now is collectively. So we've spoken with Ed about this, and we really believe that these challenges have to be addressed in a community. This is one way to look at this. So I am going to act as an orchestrator to really listen to you, but also pick people that have done this journey of implementation and bring them so we can discuss in community what their learnings are, actual use cases, practical steps, not potential, not theory, do's and don'ts, and especially with what is going on with the advancements in AI. As Ed was saying, there's no playbook there. These are new technologies. So they're a great way to start talking about how to implement practically these technologies in different areas in financial services. And that's really the reason that we are starting with this thematic, but it's not the only thematic. There's others that are important, maybe not so sexy as Gen AI, but really matter a lot. These can be around compliance, around cybersecurity, around onboarding, around risk management. So many topics.
I think
Um,
that's also a key point because within, no matter whether it's a sexy topic or an unsexy topic, I mean, if it's global payroll or if it's, Gen AI, the reality is that every one of these projects requires a quite complex and broad team of people within any organization to make them happen. It needs, obviously, sign off. It needs someone to put their neck on the line to say, we want to do this, get the sign off. You have to persuade the senior leaders that this is something they want to to invest in. But then to make it happen, you need, HR to make sure they've got the right skills of people. You need technology to make sure you've got the right, work happening to make it, be implemented. You've got compliance needs to sign off. You've got, finance wants to make sure the projects that, meeting the goals. You've got, no matter where you've got legal. Every single project, especially in the early days, is going to attract a lot of attention from people who are all doing it for the first time, but all with a different lens, a different perspective. And really, that's kind of what we're trying to do with the community, is actually give people a forum where, at that micro level, if you're worried about legal compliance for fintech in Gibraltar, there's someone you can actually ask a question that someone can actually help that in a very, very niche level. It's not of interest to everyone, but for people, so across the board, it's really how do we facilitate communication so that people who are doing these things are learning the mistakes and learning how what works, can actually communicate with each other and share that best practice, because collectively that's how we move forward.
And it's clear through my experience that there's a lot of shared learning within our industry. Our industry is broad, it has deep verticals, and a lot of them have common problems, common challenges, and those sharings don't exist. We want to focus on those sharings. For example, companies that are focused in the payments area, and companies that are focused in insurance or wealth management. They may not have, they don't have competing uh, businesses and services, but they have common learnings. And of course, there's common learnings from other industries too. So we want to focus on that, uh, because really it lacks in the market. I mean, we all go to conferences, we all read reports, we all are on social media, and I'm there 100% 24/7, so to speak, and that will continue. But there isn't a place to have these conversations, these thematics that are practical and that they can continue in between events. So
Well, I mean, people are very limited. Obviously, things at LinkedIn are very, very powerful. I mean, we're super excited by what the conversations that get kicked off in somewhere like LinkedIn. But then if you miss the feed, or if you miss the post, or if you miss that event, then that's kind of, it's all gone. The knowledge, the information is kind of, it's there somewhere, but you're not going to stumble across it. So LinkedIn, is very powerful in many ways, but it doesn't get that kind of community dialogue. And that's why so many organizations and groups, take the conversation away from LinkedIn and put it into a much more dynamic environment. And the other part is, you can go to conferences, but not everyone can go to every conference. But it's not just, you go to a conference, you see amazing things and it's inspiring, but the practicalities you have to go back to when you're back at your desk on a Monday morning after the conference, I've now got to make this happen. So conferences have obviously got their place. There's lots of thought leadership out there, blogs and videos, but again, it's almost like static content, which, doesn't allow the dialogue around it. And the whole point of the community is, for very niche topics, by industry, by specialism, you can actually have those conversations. And what a lot of FA is curating the kind of the topics and the kind of the broad kind of almost like
verticals,
verticals and horizontals are going to cover that. But within that, and then bringing in specialists who are going to bring their expertise, again, not about the vision, but actually the practicalities of making this stuff happen. But then after that, the dialogue doesn't die. You can actually have conversations with experts. Are still going to be available to ask questions you've got a week later, a month later, whatever. But the content's there, and you can ask, you can ask amongst your peers who are on the forum, and you can post questions. You can ask privately or publicly. So the whole point is that there's many other ways for people to start the ball rolling, but to actually make these projects happen successfully and faster, this is what dialogue's all about. So you're learning from people who are doing it.
And also curating, all this scattered know-how is extremely important at this point. So maybe Ed, you want to show our listeners today a bit of our the community that we have set up, and then maybe I can talk about specifics, what we are planning.
Yeah, so I think one of the things. Let me just work out to share my screen. Now we're not going to do a detailed presentation, but really what. Um,
You have to click on
yeah,
present.
can you see this?
Hold on. Here we are. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so you can see already, there's a number of people in the community, but the whole idea is this is about people. It's not just about um, a bunch of content. This is about real people who actually involved in the community. The most important things you'll see in the very short term is live events that are coming up. And again, these events that um, kind of are really about kickstarting a dialogue and a conversation. And as Effie said, what we're doing is we're bringing the experts to talk about, a tiny bit of vision to reset about why we're doing this and the big opportunity, but actually the practicalities of how this happens. So, anyone joining the community, and the community is free to join at the moment. We'll turn a paywall on at some stage in the future, but it's free to join. So this is, a great chance to get involved, for zero cost. But the events are really kind of almost like triggers to start topics, to start discussions around very specific topics. And these are the ones we've got coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah,
The whole idea.
let
Sorry.
me take a deep dive. I'm very excited about them. We're starting early next week on Tuesday, April 8th. And I will be hosting Simon Axon from Teradata. He is in charge of global financial services at Teradata. And we will be looking at ways to prepare to launch AI projects. And again, these are practical steps and practical tools and practical implementations, because we all know that you might have a roadmap. How do you start? Where do you start? That is an important part of the solution. And the week after, excited to be hosting Guillaume Guillaume Coley, who is with Cavallo Technologies, and he will be sharing 4 real world use cases of using generative AI in banking as a service situations. And the third one that we have already scheduled the week after is with Martin Muller. Maybe many of you know him. He's very active on LinkedIn, curating AI news, and he is with Microsoft. And we will be talking about generative AI practical steps in banking. So, again, I don't want to make this look like it's always going to be on Gen AI in banking. We're starting with this just because it's really an area where so many people need guidance. It's early, and there's definitely a lot that can be shared and learned together. But it gives you an idea of how we're going about this. We will have other topics lined up. And of course, what we want from you is to hear from you in the community. What are the topics that you care about? And this is not about futuristic, what will happen in 6 months, that type of thing, and which fintech will IPO, and will it be a successful IPO. This is about practical use cases in transforming transforming your business, whether you're an incumbent with legacy or you're a digitally native. You're also faced with this big challenge of how to transform to the next business model, the one that isn't born yet, and how are you integrating these new technologies And we're going to have people from Nvidia, we're going to have people from small banks, from large banks, we're going to have all sorts of um, people that are, again, implementing use cases and sharing their do's and don'ts and lessons from that. So I can only extend the invitation to you, and I'll be extremely delighted to hear from you what is troubling you, what are the roadblocks, the concerns that you have, and I'll be looking to bring in to you the best experts, the best solutions, the best practices for everything that is needed. And we know that it is complicated. AI is a great example that demonstrates the complication. We have governance, we have legal compliance, the regulators, and then we have the business people and the tech people. It's all, nothing's happening in a silo. So
Yeah.
it's
I was going to say that the key thing about the events is the events are they're live events, but it's a chance for you to actually ask questions there and then. So there will be a degree of like talking to you and sharing best practice, but it's really about your chance to kind of ask questions during the live event. Um, After the event, the recording will still be there, obviously. We'll be releasing content on LinkedIn and through the community, just snippet content, but most of the conversations will be happening on the community. Within the topics, after an event, that will kickstart a dialogue and a questions, but it also means, if you're coming to this content in a year's time or 4 months' time, you can still go back and access it, but also start asking questions. And people who maybe that 4 months or 12 months ahead of you, you can reach out to them and say, well, what's your lessons learned? So it really is about the events kickstarting a dialogue, which doesn't happen to finish when the event finishes. It's really about continuing. So whenever you're coming to that problem that the dialogue's about, the event's about, you've got somewhere to go, and you've got an expert to go to, but also you've got people who are going through the same thing to reach out to. So it is about, we're all moving at different paces and different priorities, but the content's going to be there when you need it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ed, that this is not about a PowerPoint presentation. Somebody's talking to you, and then we send you the slides, and that's that. It's really instigating and provoking conversations through the speakers that will be presenting actual use cases. In many cases, it will be with names, and in some, for obvious reasons, it won't be with names. But again, very real use cases, not theoretical ones.
But I think
And
it's also really important to think about, well, again, go back to your alternatives for getting this kind of information. You're either going to have to go and make it up yourself, search the internet and find a video that was done whenever. But this is actually your chance to actually talk to the experts, engage with the experts who's done this. And yes, you can maybe go and see them at a conference, but again, it's a lecture kind of format. This is a really, this is why it's transformative what we're doing here. It really is about, triggering a conversation, but allowing that kind of interaction thereafter. Because unless we feel empowered, as individuals to move things forward with the right knowledge, then everything starts to lag because we're looking to be super secure and super low risk to make sure that we ticked every box. And so suddenly a project that was maybe going to take 2 months takes 6 months because we're having to go back to the basics. So this is all about helping you move forward with confidence, because you've got access to people who've either done it before as a professional or people like yourself who are doing it within the real world.
yeah, I'd like to invite you to really go to the community. We should have the link here in the comments, and there, think of what are the questions first related to the scheduled online events that you want to hear about, and then in general, you should share with us what are the topics that you care about, that you're getting ready to put in practice or already in practice, and you're having questions about how to move forward.
Yeah, topics, or if there's a topic you want covered, if there's a speaker you want brought on, if there's a supplier you'd like to hear from, or an academic who you think's got something interesting to say, like reach out to us. And the great thing about Effie's brand is that it's quite easy for us to get in touch with the people who you think would add value. So it is certainly Effie's expertise and network helps curate things, but it's the community sort of momentum that helps move it to the next level.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. You can reach out to me in a much more effective way in the community. We call it the Financial Services Intelligence Hub. It is a hub. You can hang out there. You can, check in once a day, a few times a day. As we have these events, there'll be more interesting conversations there, and you can also benefit and get to know each other in a way that is more effective than on the social media platforms. And again, I will be curating some of these nuggets that will come out of these conversations on LinkedIn, but the real deep ones will be on the hub. And we have a
Okay.
couple of minutes, Ed, last minutes to share any thoughts? Do you think that I have missed something that I haven't shared?
A couple of practicality things. One is, by signing, first of all, share the sign up link with your friends and colleagues. We'll be sending that out to everyone after this anyway. The second thing is um, once you sign up, you'll get a daily update of what's happening on the community as well. So, that's going to be sort of a trigger. You'll see, events are upcoming or conversations are happening. So that will be your kind of your daily, reminder of what's happening in the community. But at any stage, you can jump in and initiate any conversation you want. But it really is about being dynamic, and we know we're very pragmatic. We know in the early days it's going to be, it's going to be small numbers of people. We're going to do a lot of work to grow that community. But at some stage, we hit a very powerful momentum whereby, this is where the whole dialogue's happening for innovation in financial services. And we know that's some way away, but even today or even starting next week, there's powerful content that's going to be of value to anyone in your organization.
Exactly. And I'm excited to host this. I'm excited to curate this. I'm excited to work with everybody who has already joined as a member and who I know will benefit from this. But please do not hesitate to reach out with requests, with thoughts, with asks around these topics. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ed, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
Right, take care.